To start out this morning, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Samina Karachi, Senior Trade Commissioner at Global Affairs Canada. Samina joined the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, now called Global Affairs Canada, in 1998. In Ottawa, she previously held assignments in the former Team Canada Division, Services Trade Policy Division, Economic Law Division of the Legal Affairs Bureau, and the E-Services Division. Abroad, Samina was assigned as Vice Consul and Trade Commissioner to the Canadian Consulate in Milan, as well as Commercial Counselor at the Canadian Embassy in Prague. She then completed a temporary assignment as Commercial Counselor at the Canadian Embassy in Rome. She started her assignment as a Commercial Counselor at the Embassy of Canada in The Hague in September 2016. Samina tells us this presentation will provide an overview of the dynamic Canada-Netherlands commercial relationship and highlights opportunities for Atlantic Canadian companies in various sectors, including digital, agri-food, seafood, and clean tech. You'll notice there is a poll available to you during this presentation, so make sure to click over and provide your answer and vote before the end of Samina's presentation. But come back to video after you cast that vote. And now, over to you, Samina.
Thanks for that introduction, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions during the question period. Hello, Atlantic Canada, from the other side of the Atlantic, and welcome to the Netherlands. I am pleased to be here with you today to talk about market opportunities. The Netherlands is a small country geographically that is internationally oriented and has global impact. It punches above its weight, and you will see why. It's a key trade, investment, and innovation partner for Canada, our fifth largest trade partner in Europe, and the second largest investor in Canada. It has a strategic and central location within Europe, bordering Germany and Belgium, and is known as the gateway to Europe. Port of Rotterdam, the largest in Europe, and the Amsterdam Airport, a key passenger and cargo hub, are here, and they're both part of the excellent logistics infrastructure. There's an international business climate. English is widely spoken. There's a skilled, educated, and multilingual workforce, competitive corporate tax rates, and a similar business culture to Canada. The economy performed better than the EU average and that of Canada last year, having a materially lower contraction than both. The Netherlands has an open economy, and it's a trading nation like Canada. The embassy estimates 200 Canadian companies of all sizes are established here, including some from Atlantic Canada, and those are CompuSalt and McCain Foods. And there's a strong cultural and historical link based on Canada's role in the liberation of the Netherlands in World War II and hosting the Dutch royal family in exile. The Dutch are innovators and inventors, ranked 5th on the Global Innovation Index. The Netherlands is known for its technology and innovation ecosystem, including innovation hubs in various sectors throughout the country and living labs for different domains, such as clean technologies, cybersecurity, and smart cities. The collaboration of government, academia, and industry drives innovation. There's an active startup and scale-up environment, and the Netherlands is strong in commercialization. It's a test bed for new ideas and technologies, and Dutch consumers embrace new digital applications. Both the private and public sectors invest heavily in R&D. There are more than 100 Canadian-Dutch R&D projects under EU research programs. The Eureka Network, of which Canada is an associate member, provides opportunities for innovation partnership and R&D cooperation through its programs. The National Research Council manages Canada's Eureka National Office and provides small and medium enterprises with a first contact point and funding for R&D projects that are approved under that network. The Netherlands is amongst the most happy countries in the world, which is good for innovation and good for business. Now, some market facts. The GDP in 2020 was 1.1 trillion. The population here is over 17 million people. And in 2020, merchandise imports from Canada were valued at 5.4 billion. And this includes transshipment, so goods that arrive here and go on to other destinations. In 2019, the services imports from Canada were valued at 1.5 billion. And you can see some examples in both categories of what is imported from Canada. Now let's focus on Atlantic Canada. In 2020, Atlantic Canada exported 1.2 billion in total merchandise to the Netherlands, and the top product exports by value were crude oil, petroleum products, iron ore, and nickel. And this is an increase of 2.5 times over goods exports in 2016. And that was the last full year before the Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement entered into provisional application. And you may be familiar with this agreement known as CETA, which promotes Canada-European Union trade. Canada-Netherlands bilateral merchandise trade, that's trade going both ways, was growing until last year compared with pre-CETA times in 2016, and is up almost 30%. And we find that more Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises are exporting to the Netherlands since CETA came into effect, as well as importing more Dutch products into Canada. And what are the benefits for Atlantic Canada? Well, CETA gives preferential access. It opens up markets for goods and services trade, tariff elimination and reduction. 98% of tariff lines are now eliminated for Canadian products exported to the EU. And CETA enhances skilled labor mobility between Canada and the European Union. And it opens the door to bid on procurement contracts of all levels of EU government. And here are some examples of Atlantic exports to the Netherlands with high growth since CETA. And that includes food and beverage ingredients and flavorings, frozen fruits, berries, and nuts, and fish fats and oils. At the embassy, we cover a number of sectors, which I'd like to talk to you about now. The first of those is information and communications technologies. Netherlands is one of the most wired countries in the world. 98% of Dutch households have broadband connection. The Dutch technological environment is anchored by a robust digital infrastructure, including the Amsterdam Internet Exchange, which is a digital data distributor. The Dutch government is strongly focused on developments in tech. In 2019, they launched the Strategic Action Plan for AI, and in 2018, launched the Dutch Digitalization Strategy. In the Netherlands, you'll find a collaborative and innovative environment. There are intersections between tech and other industries, and some examples are seen in smart farming and agricultural technologies. Even in 2020, a recession environment due to the pandemic, this industry thrived, growing almost 5%. There are 55,000 companies in the sector with a total annual turnover of more than 130 billion Canadian dollars. The Netherlands are front runners in fintech, regtech, online banking, and e-commerce. So there are opportunities for innovative technologies, in particular fintech, cybersecurity, e-health, smart products and services. The Netherlands is a leading cybersecurity hub in Europe and home to Europe's largest security cluster, the Hague Security Delta. International organizations like Europol and NATO have operations here. The embassy and its partners offer a cyber and securities technologies soft landing program for Canadian and Dutch companies in the mature startup phase to soft land in each other's markets. So Canadian companies have the opportunity to soft land virtually these days at the Hague Security Delta for a trial period to test the market and access resources and support. It's a low risk entry to a new international market. Now, a few words about agri-food and seafood. The Netherlands is the second largest exporter of agri-food worldwide by value after the US. Dutch buyers and distributors are purchasing for global markets in addition to the Netherlands. It's the largest agri-food trading hub in Europe with opportunities to connect with agri-food investors. The organic market is growing. There's an emphasis on health, healthy aging, and sustainability. And the Netherlands is a leader in ag tech, especially in indoor farming and greenhouses. So there could be opportunities for Canadian companies that have specialized technologies for these areas. And as I mentioned earlier, There are key logistics hubs here for the transport of agri-food and seafood via the Port of Rotterdam and the Amsterdam airport. The world-renowned Agricultural University in Wageningen is doing research on food tech, sustainable farming, animal and plant diseases, just to name a few areas. The Netherlands is the 5th largest importer of Canadian seafood in the EU, and the main exports in 2020 included lobster, fish oil, and scallops. Now, a few words about clean technologies. The Netherlands has a mature and innovative market in renewables, that is wind energy, capture and conversion of waste gases, and biomass conversion. By 2030, 27% of the Netherlands' energy must be from renewable sources, according to the Dutch Energy Agreement, and this includes offshore wind energy. The Netherlands is aiming for 0 carbon emissions from the energy supply by 2050. So leading edge cost-saving technology is welcome in the bioeconomy space and for carbon reduction, capture, and reuse. The Dutch government has a sustainable energy transition subsidy program called the SDE++ for renewable energy and carbon reduction projects. Canadian companies, as part of a consortium with a Dutch company, can apply if the projects are in the Netherlands. And applications can be submitted in September and October later this year. And interest has grown recently in hydrogen and fuel cells, that is energy storage and alternative fuels, and especially green hydrogen. And in terms of opportunities, there are additional offshore wind parks being planned to increase wind energy capacity. And the SDE++ system allows for hydropower projects in the Netherlands. Although the height, that is the river drop and the tidal difference, is of course very limited in this flat country. But companies with expertise in offshore wave or tidal power might find opportunities. And there's an emphasis on the bio-based economy with the move from bioenergy to bioproducts. And the challenge here is that the Netherlands has innovative and leading technologies in the sector against which Canada must compete. Now, a few words about the maritime sector. The Netherlands has a large shipbuilding industry and a thriving luxury yacht industry. So there are opportunities in this sector, particularly for clean tech solutions for the luxury yacht industry. And I wanted to mention Port Excel at the Port of Rotterdam. It's a maritime and port accelerator program for startups and scale-ups doing maritime innovation. And I wanted to mention a few events that you can keep on your radar. We don't know about the format yet, so please contact us. In November, there's Aquatech. It's a trade show for processed drinking and wastewater. And we are going to be organizing business-to-business meetings for Canadian companies. And after that comes the Marine Equipment Trade Show. And we are also planning a Businesswomen in International Trade Benelux mission with our colleagues at the Canadian Embassy in Brussels. And I wanted to mention some market intelligence you may find interesting. We have just done some market studies, one concerning Dutch ag tech that's used in the greenhouse industry, and also a study on Dutch agricultural robotics. And there are 2 guides I wanted to mention from the Trade Commissioner Service. The first is a new one. It's a guide for Canadian craft beer exporters. And the other one is a guide for European innovation partnerships. And it has some specific data on advanced manufacturing and agriculture. Now, doing business here, it can be a good test market for starting your business in Europe. And from here, you can consider a regional European approach. It's a very connected marketplace, and there's an openness to international business. Your growth is my growth. In terms of challenges, it's an open economy, so there's lots of international competition here. So you have to have a strong value proposition, be patient and persistent, and prepared to adapt your strategies, such as labeling with various languages and following EU food safety requirements. Regular follow-up is necessary, so keep in touch with the Dutch and take a long-term view. And presently, there is limited container and air cargo capacity. And a few words about the impact of COVID here. Well, the Dutch logistics system is proving to be resilient, so goods keep moving and no interruptions to speak of. There's presently a ban on travel from Canada with certain exceptions allowed. And since the pandemic, e-commerce is on the rise. The Netherlands is an e-commerce hub, and as Canadian exporters and potential exporters, you may wish to locate your warehousing and fulfillment centers here to serve European clients, given the excellent logistics and location. Canada Goose, for example, has its European fulfillment center here. And bonded warehouses offer the opportunity to defer duties and allow shipments to be divided and shipped within or beyond the EU. And the largest online Dutch retailer is bol.com. In 2020, Amazon.nl started here. And the Dutch e-commerce industry was worth 39 billion in 2020, which is a 7% growth compared to 2019. And online sales currently account for just over 10% of the country's total retail industry. So in closing, I wanted to say a few words about us, the Trade Commissioner Service. Well, we're here, we're your in-market support around the world, especially in these times of pandemic recovery, to help you with your global growth. There are also 6 regional offices and trade commissioners located across Canada, including in your neck of the woods. And they can help you prepare for international markets. So we have knowledge, networks, and partners to support you, as well as funding with the Can Export program. And that is the team there in the Netherlands. We are here for you. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Samina, for providing us with that important presentation and update on the Netherlands market. Samina will be joining us online live for a Q&A at the end of our next presentation, where you'll be able to ask questions to both of our presenters. So keep those questions coming in the chat, both in this session as well as the next one. As a quick reminder, make sure you follow along with our agenda by clicking on the session on the left of your screen. Next, we'll be going to our market overview of Belgium. I'm happy to introduce our second presenter this morning, Michelle Gartland. Michelle is a Senior Trade Commissioner at the Embassy of Canada to Belgium and Luxembourg. Michelle and her team help Canadian companies connect into opportunities and identify partners in priority sectors, including clean tech and digital technologies. Prior to Brussels, Michelle held positions in Ottawa and London as part of the Trade Commissioner Service, working with Canadian companies. Michelle's presentation will provide an overview of the market landscape in Belgium and highlight opportunities for Atlantic Canadian companies in various sectors, including digital, agri-food and seafood, and tech. And remember to click on the poll button to take the poll and then come back to the stream through the video button. And also remember to keep those questions coming in the chat. And now over to you, Michelle.
Thank you for the introduction, and I look forward to taking your questions at the end of my presentation. Bonjour from Brussels. My name is Michelle Gartland. I am the Senior Trade Commissioner based in Brussels, covering Belgium and Luxembourg. Often overlooked in favor of its larger, more prominent neighbors, but it shouldn't be, is Belgium. And my goal here is to put this on your export map or to be considered map in the next 15 minutes. Belgium is a small, open economy with 3 official languages: French, Flemish, and German. It's a like-minded country that favors multilingualism, rule of law, democracy, transparency, all of the essentials for the foundation of doing business. It's an economy that is highly dependent upon exports. They are in the top 10 global exporters, and over 80% of Belgian GDP comes from exports. Services are also an important part of the Belgian economy, and they account for 80% of total employment in Belgium. Belgium has very strong ties with Canada for many reasons, but most notably, thanks to Canada's contribution to its liberation efforts during the war. You still feel this gratitude immensely today here in Belgium. You feel it through the people, you see it through the monuments throughout the country. This makes doing business here easier. Canadian products and technologies are well received. The door is open. Location, location, location is what I would like to impress upon you about Belgium. Within a few hours drive, you're in Germany, Netherlands, and France, and that's a huge asset. Within 750 kilometer range, You have access to over 250 million consumers. That's 60% of the EU's purchasing power. This strategic central location and being home to the second largest port in Europe, Antwerp, has attracted a lot of big name distributors, manufacturers who are all seeking access to the EU's largest economies. So this makes Belgium a market in itself. Canada enjoys a healthy trade and investment relationship with Belgium. Two-way merchandise trade totaled 7.1 billion in 2020. There was a decrease in 2019. However, we have to factor in COVID. Some of the top sectors were precious stones, metals, pharmaceutical products. One thing I want to point out to you on this slide is the examples of Canadian products with high growth since CETA. Since the provisional implementation of CETA, or the Canadian Economic Trade Agreement, it's meant that Canadian exporters have a competitive advantage over other countries such as the US. You have access to tariff reductions, labor mobility, access to local procurement opportunities. So if we take a little closer look here, we can see some of the products that have increased significantly since CETA has come into force, since they've had this competitive advantage. Periscopes, the tariff of 4.7% was eliminated. Articles of ceramics, which is a composite mixture of metals, metal and ceramics, that has increased significantly and eliminated a 5% tariff, as well as cranberry juice, which had a tariff up of 16%. So these are some of the areas where we've seen significant growth since. This is just another slide here to really demonstrate to you the key role that Belgium plays in the Canadian economy. It is Canada's 7th largest EU trading partner and the 7th largest EU investor in Canada, or 17th largest globally. Not broken down here or shown here is service exports from Canada to Belgium, and these sat around about 914 million, which is more than our service imports from Belgium into Canada, which is a good thing. And if we look, well, it's not labeled on here, but some of the notable firms that have a presence here in Belgium are Mitel, which is an ICT company, McCain's, and Agri-Food. And one that not many people know is the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan has a 39% interest or investment in Brussels Airport. These all give us a bit of a Canadian advantage to be able to promote and plug Canadian technologies into some of the Canadian ecosystem that already exists. Now, I did look a little bit deeper into what's happening between Belgium and Atlantic Canada. And so we can see here there's a 224 million export. Not bad during a COVID year. There was a decline. This was mainly due to iron ore and nickel exports, which were most affected. And again, I'll draw your attention to the top line where we've seen significant growth in Atlantic Canada products since CETA came into force. You exported 7.3 million worth of frozen fruits, berries, and nuts to Belgium. That was a 52% increase since CETA came into force. Frozen scallops, 2.1 million in exports. That was a 34% increase and an 8% tariff elimination since CETA came into force. And as well, motor vehicles, which saw, well, a lesser but still significant 1.1 million export, and a 395% increase to Belgium since CETA came into force. Now, I will talk to you more than just statistics. So here I am on slide 6 to talk about market opportunities in Belgium. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service here in Belgium has identified sectors where we think Canadian companies have the most opportunity to succeed. This is based on the opportunity we see in market, but also on the Canadian strengths. So if we look at clean tech, Belgium has really struggled to lower its GHG emissions, and it's lagging behind a lot of its EU counterparts in reaching EU commitments. It has been criticized by the EU Commission consistently for setting unambitious targets. And I have to say, not having a ruling government for extended period made it difficult for them to implement targets and set a direction. And one of the key areas they always failed to meet was they're increasing their share of renewable energy. Belgium remains reliant on fossil fuels and is facing energy security challenges. Nuclear energy covers half of electricity demand, and Belgium has one of the highest electricity rates in Europe. However, there is a new Belgian government afoot who has planned to move away from nuclear, increase energy security, and has prioritized investments in green energy. So we've seen a focus on offshore wind, which is driving opportunities in the management of offshore wind, so smart grid and energy storage. Also, I want to mention hydrogen. In Belgium and Western Europe writ large, there is not enough wind or solar energy to meet demand, so it's going to have to be supplemented by some form of renewable energy from abroad. And this is where Belgium is looking to leverage its ports and pipeline infrastructure, which is already linked to the major industrial clusters, to import renewable energy through green hydrogen carriers. Belgium's not looking at only itself, but looking to become a supplier for Europe. While there is no national strategy out on hydrogen yet, the Flanders region and Wallonia region have already started to set targets and objectives. And Belgium is looking at putting in pilot projects, and feasibility studies have already begun. Another one I'd like to briefly talk about is energy efficiency. As part of the EU Green Deal recovery, building renovation is going to be a priority. And there's a renovation wave initiative, which is a flagship initiative that is looking at increasing energy efficiency in housing and building renovations to reduce energy consumption of buildings. It's no surprise that they focused on this sector because the EU building sector writ large is responsible for 40% of EU energy consumption and 36% of the EU GHG emissions. 75% of the buildings in the EU have been deemed energy inefficient. Belgium is taking this seriously. They are one of only 5 EU member states that submitted plans to address these challenges, indicating their seriousness and the effort they're going to put into this. So we're seeing opportunities in automation and control systems, heating and cooling, lighting, ventilation, etc. ICT. Belgium is a digitally connected, savvy population. I think it would be fair to say that they've not necessarily been an adopter of all tech trends, but due to a vibrant startup scene, they are starting to accelerate their pace. There's been a huge increase since COVID in the e-commerce market. Last year, Belgium spent 9.2 billion online, which is not bad for a population of 11 million. And we've seen some of the sectors emerging, such as the health and beauty sector is a key online sector that has really grown. So what does this mean? Well, this means a demand for e-commerce platform services. Prior to COVID, Belgium was really lagging behind on online sales, but now retailers and manufacturers have seen the value of having a deeper integration of offline and online omnichannel retail services. So being able to have an in-store presence, a mobile presence, an online presence, it makes them better able to serve their customer and know their customer. A key tip, Belgium makes a very good location for your e-commerce strategy because of its central location and its distribution network to get you into other markets. You will have to translate your product and instructions into French and Dutch, but don't just think about Belgium. Think about this as an access into other markets, the cross-border opportunity. You've got the Netherlands and France on either side. So translation for this market, you get bigger access. Also, something else to consider is the regional differences between the countries. I know in the Netherlands, they like to pay with an ideal platform, whereas Belgians only use bank contact. So these are small things, but important things you need to know. And that's where we at the TCS can help you to understand those little nuances between countries and regions. Internet security is another area where it's been lagging behind, and the Belgian government is now really driving to move cybersecurity up more as a priority, and this is also driven by consumer demand. Another area I just want to briefly touch on is the logistics sector. Big sector in Belgium, obviously because of the ports and the multiple ports and the road networks and rail networks. It's a sector where 22% of all new investment has been related to the logistics sector. And we're seeing significant pressure on this sector to innovate and integrate digital technologies. So it's one that we're watching very closely and trying to pull Canadian companies in. Agri-food, big sector in Belgium. Belgium is the world's 10th largest importer of agri-food and seafood products. It's a mature market, which has, again, benefits because of its logistically connected ecosystem. We're seeing a trend here to purchase sustainable and healthy food and organic products, which bodes really well for Canada, who has key strength in these areas, and has the CETA tariff elimination benefit as well. Doing business in Belgium. Well, I think I've covered a lot of this, but you know, I like to say Belgium is an ideal market for you to land softly in Europe, and it's small enough for you to come here, work out your challenges and your kinks, adapt to a new market, and then slowly grow into the other markets. You're also likely to find a partner here that's going to be already exporting to those markets, speaks multiple languages, and can take you into those other markets. It's not as aggressive and competitive and a bit more as forgiving than some of the larger neighboring markets. It's also home to the NATO, to the EU, to many multinationals and lobbyists. So you have access to many, many cultures and key targets within Belgium. There are regional differences you need to take into consideration. One size does not fit all in Belgium, but that's where you can work with us at Trade Commissioner Service to help you navigate those challenges. I wanted to flag here some of the key events that we're going to be doing in this next year in hopes that you will plug into these or contact us for more information to participate. We're running a clean tech businesswoman's mission. We are doing a carbon capture and storage mission to Canada. And we're also hosting a seminar on all of the events that are happening in Europe for clean tech, and we're targeting women exporters. So if any of those are interest, please contact me and I'll give you more details. We also have some market intelligence that I think will help pave the way for you or help you better understand the opportunity. And we've done one this year in ag tech, logistics and supply chain, as well as artificial intelligence. We've gotten these written for Canadian exporters. So please, if this is interest, contact me and I'll give you more information. Last but not least, and I've talked about this a bit, so I won't put too much into it, but e-commerce, I've mentioned, is growing. The logistics sector has had a lot of pressure and is growing rapidly. The one last thing I'd like to talk to you about is the life sciences and the biopharmaceutical and the contribution that Belgium has made. Over 15 million vaccines to the global world to the globe has come out of Belgium, and that's thanks to GSK, Janssen, Pfizer, all producing here in Belgium and sending to the world. So there's a well-developed life sciences ecosystem here that is ready to partner with you and should be on your export destination. And with that, I'm going to leave you here, and thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Wonderful presentation. I'd also like to just remind everybody to follow along. So if you just look to the left of your screen, you're going to be read live above the market opportunities in Belgium. So if you want to go over and click on that right now, that'll take you into the live active chat right now, as well as the poll question for Michelle's presentation. So just going to give a quick second for everyone to look over and move to market opportunities in Belgium in the agenda, and then we'll all be in the same place. So at this time, while everyone's moving to the live session, I would just like to thank both Michelle and Samina for their presentations, and I'd like to invite both of them to come online with me now with two special guests from their teams to go into our Q&A and discussion of the poll questions. So thank you, Samina and Michelle, for providing the important information on those markets. And you both brought colleagues from your Trade Commissioner teams with you today. I'm just going to give each a quick opportunity to introduce themselves. So perhaps, Diederik, if you could quickly introduce yourself to our audience.
Good morning. My name is Diederik Beutener. I just made up the name to make it really difficult for you to write it down. I'm a trade commissioner. That's a joke, of course. I'm a trade commissioner in the Netherlands, here at the Embassy of Canada. just north of Rotterdam. Mainly focused on agri-food sector, including ag tech and food tech. I'm working quite a number of years now with people across Atlantic Canada and provincial colleagues in trade and investment. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Diederik. Charlotte, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here with you today. I'm Charlotte Moreau, and I'm I work with Michel's team in Brussels. And so we cover Belgium, but also Luxembourg. I'm responsible for the sectors of clean tech and energy, and then also agri-food. And as Diederik mentioned, also a bit on ag tech, which is kind of the link between clean tech and agri-food.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have all four of you here with us today to answer the questions coming in from our Atlantic Canadian companies. But before we get into the questions, we did have those polls. So we're going to take a look at those results and get some reactions to that. So we'll start with yours, Samina. So the question one was, which of the following is not a Dutch invention? And the two leaders, quite a significant margin at 58% last time I looked, was orange carrots, and at 25%, the fire hose. So what is the correct answer to that one?
Okay, the correct answer is number 4, the barometer. Now, the barometer, the mercury barometer, it's the oldest type, and it was invented by an Italian physicist in 1643. Meaning the rest of those options are all Dutch inventions. And this question is really a nod to Dutch innovation. And I'll just take a little time here to run through the answers, because I have to say, before I came to the Netherlands, I didn't know any of these were Dutch inventions. So yeah, the orange carrots. Originally, carrots were white, yellow, and purple. And there is an interesting theory that in the 17th century, Dutch growers cultivated orange carrots as a tribute to William of Orange, who led this struggle for Dutch independence. And stroopwafels, which are delicious with coffee or tea, I'm sure some of you have tried them before. They originate from the Dutch city of Gouda, also known for cheese. And the first ones were said to be made in the early 19th century, when a baker sweetened leftover breadcrumbs with a thick syrup. And the eye test, or the Snellen chart, which I know particularly well, wearing glasses most of my life, they're named after the Dutch, the charts are named after the Dutch ophthalmologist Herman Snellen. He developed this in 1862. And the fire hose was very interesting. Around 1673, a Dutch painter, inventor, and printmaker, Jan van der Heyden, and his son produced what they called the fire hose, and it was leather tubes sewed together in 50-foot lengths. Those are about 15 meters, which are still considered a standard length to this day. So those are some examples of Dutch innovation from the past, but there are lots of current and future innovations, and it's a good market if you're looking for an innovation partner.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Samina. I love how much I'm learning stuff from these poll questions myself. So that's great. Thank you. So now let's pop over to the poll question that you had, Michel, which was an open-ended one for people to put their answer in to see, when I think of Belgium, I think of, and so some of the responses that came in all caps, beer and chocolate, yum. So that was a very enthusiastic response from somebody. Waffles, Flanders, French fries. So quite a few on the food side of things. What's your reaction to some of those responses?
Yes, I can confirm that waffles, chocolates, frites, food in general is very much a part of Belgian culture, as well as beer. Although they don't look like a country that overindulges in it. So that's a good thing. They've managed to find the moderation. But Belgium really is synonymous with chocolate. The port of Antwerp is the second largest importer of cocoa beans in Europe. They're also the export 11% of global exports of chocolate. There is a Belgium chocolate code of conduct. So they preserve their reputation on chocolate making, and they have a very high standard. Beer, if you've ever tried Belgian beer, you won't forget it. Big business over here, 300 plus breweries, growing all the time. The craft beer market is really taking off here in Belgium. But it's also one that's steeped in history. So you still find Trappist beers where monks are making them and only sell them at certain times of the day and can only be picked up by your car, by the monks at a certain time. And these are world-renowned beers, which are fantastic. Waffles are also very synonymous with Belgium, and there's 12 regional varieties. So you can explore and take your time traveling around Belgium to try the different varieties of waffles in each of the regions, all delicious. You will find the waffle vans at every corner of the street, and they are enjoyed at all times of day. But I put one in there which was a little bit less known for Belgium, and it might be more known now because of the pandemic, which is vaccines. So Belgium accounts for about 13% of all biopharmaceutical exports from the EU, which is not bad for having just 2.5% of the EU's population. They also account for 10% of the R&D in biopharmaceuticals coming out of the EU. We have seen and benefited from this in Canada. Most of the vaccines that we are receiving in Canada right now have come from Belgium or have come via Belgium. So the Pfizer vaccine that we have all gloriously received across Canada or are rolling out across Canada has been coming from a small town called Perth, most known for Duvel beer, but now is become this little known village, which is now known for producing the Pfizer vaccine. Also Moderna. Moderna is taking advantage of Belgium's logistics. It's really set itself up as being the centerpiece of Europe to distribute and store the vaccines coming out of Belgium. So I think last year passenger travel was down 80%, but cargo was up 20%. And that was due to the vaccines coming out of Belgium, going over to 40 global destinations. Another one that you'll see coming out of Belgium is the AstraZeneca. So that is also being produced here and shipped globally. Medicago from Quebec is working with GSK here in Belgium to in the final stages of putting a vaccine together. CureVac, which is the German startup, has also producing their vaccine, which will be about 100 million doses at the end of this year. And of course, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes from Belgium. Janssen was the manufacturer, and they have produced that vaccine, which is going global. So I think now, you know, the waffles, the chocolates, always going to be part of Belgium, but we need to think about the innovation and really how it's come on the center of the global map for vaccine production.
Oh, that's excellent. Thanks, Michelle. And if you maybe connect with me offline to talk about that moderation thing that they perfected, because I have not been doing so well at that during COVID. So that would be great to learn a little bit more about. So we have a lot of questions coming in. We've only probably got about 10 or so minutes to start addressing these now, looking at the clock. So I'm going to encourage all four of you to pop to the platform after. You'll see all the questions in the chat, and you can start answering some questions or connecting with folks that have questions in there so that we can get to everything. But to start, I'm going to start with some sort of open-ended questions. Hopefully that can be for both markets. But let's start with you know, what are some of the new or emerging consumer trends in the Netherlands and Belgium? So you know, ESG, eco packaging things. What would you be seeing on your end?
Okay, well, let me just say a few words about that. I think when it comes to food, and Diederik can definitely say more because he's steeped in that. But organic products are on the rise. Anything related to healthy aging is gaining traction here, as well as, you know, e-health products in that regard. smart products. So maybe Diederik, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, thanks, Samina. I think we're seeing a real strong growth in e-commerce and e-commerce sales or web sales. Consumers, not just because of COVID, but for the last 6-7 years, they've started to really order more and more online, and especially the younger crowd, younger generations. Although I have to admit that my 87-year-old mom is getting better and better at ordering her groceries online, but she needs to increase the value by ordering a few bottles of white wine each time. But that aside, plastics are being removed from the grocery chains. So you see a number of our larger supermarket chains, national chains, that are starting to think about, how do we reduce the number of plastic packaging across our chain, and significantly reduce the tonnage of plastic that is used by our chains. Plastic bags are no longer possible. Cans, so we're talking beer cans and other beverage cans are being recycled as of 2022. Food waste is a big deal right now. So consumers are starting to really look at ways to help with the mounting heap of food waste. So they're quite interested, especially the younger generations, in seeing if they can, for example, buy soup that is made of food waste. Well, of course not food waste, but a very nice bell pepper or paprika that was maybe just beyond its shelf life, is being processed into a beautiful soup, and there's a wide range of those products coming out here in the Netherlands. It has to do with a major push by Dutch government to reduce the millions and millions of tons of food waste in the Netherlands. Also related to Dutch government regulations is the growth in plant proteins, and you see it in Canada, of course, with your supercluster in plant proteins. But you go with me through one of the retailers and you'll see shelves that are just packed with new products that are launched every single year with plant proteins or based on plant proteins. A very significant effort there, and consumers are picking it up, are ordering it. For you in Canada, if I had to choose a few trends that are really significant, it's figure out what e-commerce can do for your business. How do you get your warehouse in Europe, of course, how do you get that connected to some real interesting e-commerce channels? And how do you deal with the things like VAT and value-added tax? And how do you deal with the fact that sometimes a consumer could be ordering small quantities, whereas some of the retailers might be ordering 5 pallets? There are solutions for you. There are people that are willing to help you with those type of questions on logistics, e-commerce, setting up an e-fulfillment center. But just reach out to me or Samina, and we'll help you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Diederik. So I think we're going to go into rapid fire mode here with a quick question, quick answer. We've only got a few minutes left. So starting with Michelle and Charlotte, maybe if you can speak to this a bit about what are some of the the best routes to market for getting into Belgium, Luxembourg for Atlantic-Canadian SMEs.
Why don't you take that one, Charlotte?
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. So I think there's, as was mentioned during the presentation, Benelux and Belgium and Netherlands are a huge logistic hub and importation hub in Europe. And geographically, Atlantic Canada is close to those point of entry. And so you could either think of going by freight and air cargo with huge airports that we have here in Belgium. We have Brussels Airport, but we also have Liège Airport, which is a main hub for distribution, was also a key player in the distribution of vaccines in the last year. And thinking of marine routes, of course, there's the Port of Antwerp, the Port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. There are huge import hubs. They have a storage capacity there to store your products in waiting for them to be redistributed in Belgium or in other member states of Europe. And then, of course, I think it would be wise to also talk with importers when you would want to import here instead of maybe directly working with the end consumer or customer, rather. We have, and you can contact us for that if you need more info on importers that are present on the market for your specific products.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So again, probably quick answers from both on this one, but and some of this might have been covered a little bit earlier. But what are some of the cultural differences or things to be aware of for in each market that a company should be aware of as they're getting their market entry plan started? So maybe start with you, Michelle, and then go to Samina.
So I'll say just quickly, don't forget that Belgium has regions. So one size does not fit all. So there's a French-speaking region, there's a German-speaking region, there's Brussels, which is kind of a snapshot of Europe with all of the large institutions and multinationals which have set up here. And then, of course, there's the Flemish-Dutch region. So each of those have their own trends, each of those have their own buying styles, so make sure you take that into account when you come in here, and that's what we're here for, to help you with that. We have locally engaged staff. Charlotte is from the Wallonia region, and will be able to give you great advice and insight on what some of those cultural differences are and how you should approach the regions going in. Over to you, Samina.
Thanks, Michelle. So what I'll say is once you've established contact, whether that's virtually, when things open up and you're going to come over here and you're going to meet with potential Dutch business partners, it's important to build that relationship. And you saw on the slide, there was that phrase in English, keep in touch with the Dutch. That's very true. Keep that contact going, and that'll certainly help your business here.
Perfect. And I'll just mention several questions come in, industry specific. Cindy, Patrick, some of our audience members, I recommend you reach out to all four of these folks through the networking function to connect and talk more, because I know you had some specific questions. But just to end off with more of a general question that I'm sure anyone that's looking at a new market would love to know. Maybe we'll start on the Netherlands side and then go to Belgium. But how open would you say consumers are to new products or new tastes, and what should people consider when introducing something like that into the market? So Samina or Diederik?
Diederik, you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. New products, new tastes. Well, you have to realize that you're up against the European. In food industry, for example, you're up against some very strong players in the European market that have significant marketing budget, that have a significant presence, and their logistics set up properly. So when you want to break into that market, and you want to, maybe secure some of that market share, you will have to dedicate resources. You will have to be very close to your customer. So a buyer at a major retail chain will be asking you to reply almost immediately. And the warehouse has to be in Northern Europe, probably Benelux area, because when they have a problem that they're running out of stock, they want you to bring that product into their retail stores within 24 hours or less even. That quite often is quite a challenge for Canadian companies. So when you want to bring in a new product, a new taste, yeah, it is possible. But what I've seen over the last years is that Canadian firms that were getting there, that were really achieving that goal, they've really started doing their homework. They've really set up their entire value chain, their chain into Northern Europe. They've started with one small market like Belgium or the Netherlands. Saw if it really worked. If it didn't work, why was that? Why was the consumer not picking it up? Was it pricing, packaging? Was it the marketing, etc.? We have consultancies here locally that can help you with, for example, with packaging or marketing. We can help you find the right trade shows and the right events to participate in. But like I said, yeah, find your dedicated team to work on, for example, a project in the Netherlands and a launch in the Netherlands. Find the right events, do your homework. Don't show up at a trade show without knowing exactly what your price will be or how you're going to get your product into Antwerp or Rotterdam, because that's basically then basically don't even show up at the event. Don't go to these shows. You've got to do your homework and all those things that need to go beforehand. We've seen some great examples.
Sorry to cut you off there, Diederik. I'm just looking at the time here, and we're eating into our break. So unfortunately, as much as I'd love to keep this conversation going as long as we can, we are going to give the audience time to quickly regroup before our next time. So Michelle and Charlotte, if maybe you could jump into the chat on the platform to provide some thoughts as well. Lots of questions in there, lots of people curious about these markets, and the Trade Commissioner Service is such an incredibly valuable resource. So I know they would appreciate connecting with all of you individually. So thank you so much, Samina, Michelle, Diederik, and Charlotte. Really appreciate your time and enjoyed having you with us. And it would be great if you could stay online with us for the rest of the forum to see some of those questions and respond in the chat. It is time for us to grab a quick break, everyone to sort of refresh, recharge. So go grab a coffee. We're going to restart in about 6 minutes, 10:10. Jump over to the networking tab, see who's online and connect with them. But yeah, get up and move around for a couple minutes and be back promptly at 10:10, and we'll get into our next session. Thanks so much, everybody.